Hi there, thanks for joining me, Adam Gower, for today's episode of the real estate crowdfunding show Syndication in the Digital Age at GowerCrowd.com. So far in this series, we've been talking about digital marketing best practices across various of the key social media platforms. But the big question is, of course, how on earth does anyone find the time to manage one social media channel, let alone many, right? Well, my guest today, Gavin Hammar, is the founder and CEO at Sendible.com, which is a social media management platform that makes it easier to handle multiple channels all at the same time. Here's just some of what you're going to hear about today. How to syndicate your messaging across multiple channels, how to identify the optimal time to post each day, ways to recruit your team to produce great content, and much more. And as you know, this series is designed to give you the tools to start raising capital effectively online by tapping into the leading edge techniques so that you can stay up to date on what's currently working best. And to put some structure on the entirety of that task, I have put together some advanced training that you can access at the show notes page that guide you through the basics and how to structure your own digital marketing system. You can find the show notes by navigating to the podcast page at GowerCrowd.com, where you'll also find links to more information about Gavin and Sendible.com. That's GowerCrowd.com, and please navigate to the podcast page. All right, that's it. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce the founder and CEO of Sendible.com, Gavin Hammar. All right, Gavin. So thanks so much. Anyway, really appreciate being on the show. You're from Cape Town, and I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and the entire description says tech entrepreneur, software developer, and foundable of Sendible. All right, give me some color. Right, where do you come from? How did it all begin?
Firstly, thanks so much for having me, Adam. So as you said, I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. How did Sendible begin? Where did I come from? So the whole idea was for me to move to London from Cape Town in order to travel. Obviously being from Cape Town, the southern tip of Africa, and with the currency being so weak, it was really difficult just to kind of travel and see the world. And when I decided to move, I had a girlfriend who I was dating for 5 years. I'd been in a job for 4.5 years and just needed to kind of get out of that small town mentality. So I moved to London, planned to be there for a year, travel and work. But in that time, I obviously got to see the world, to see this cosmopolitan city, got to meet lots of people. When I came to London, I had one friend. I had various jobs, kind of working for different software companies. And one of the software companies that I worked for was in the business of kind of creating banking integration systems. So kind of sending banking messages from one platform to another. And around that time, it was about 2008, I think it was. That's kind of when Facebook and Twitter were just becoming more mainstream and gaining in popularity. So I had an idea to kind of, similar to banking integration, but create a social media integration system. And I decided to build some software and kind of plug in Twitter, Facebook, all the other up and coming social media platforms, even Friendster at the time, Bebo, and make it a platform that you could plug in any sort of social network and distribute the content as if you're writing an email. And I put the website up and very quickly got 20,000 users back then. It was a free platform. It was written about on TechCrunch, Mashable, and all these other tech publications. And just over time, I guess I just developed it and kind of tried to monetize it. There's a story behind how I had to quit my job, but I can tell you that a bit later. Yeah, okay. That's kind of how. So it's been 10 years now in the making, and right now we have around 20,000 users on the platform. Most of them are agencies, and obviously quite a few small businesses who are trying to get their message out there.
All right, so tell me a kind of the high level idea. What does Sendible do today?
So there's a lot of things, and I guess today I think the key use case is for brand awareness. So how can you get your message out there on the social web? How can you be seen? How can you write your content once but distribute it across multiple platforms in different ways? So we have the ability for agencies and content companies to get together, collaborate with their teams, craft the content, and easily automate the distribution of that content on social media. You can also measure the impact of that content. You can also monitor what's being said on the social web about any keyword that you're monitoring. So in real estate, it might be a location-based sort of keyword that you want to monitor, and you can then use that to engage with those opportunities and those leads. So it's a tool to help you manage social media at scale, and it's designed to save you time and kind of make the most of your time on social media. The other important feature we have is obviously we understand that people are running businesses, and what we do is we bring in all the engagement comes into a single priority inbox, almost like your email inbox, where you can respond to every incoming comment, post that you receive, and respond, whether it's from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, in a single sort of view. So I think that should cover most of what it does, but there's a lot more.
Okay, so that's fascinating. So let's kind of drill down on that a little bit, right? So for somebody, it's for the uninitiated. If we're looking at we want to get a message out. So we can talk about development of content separately, but let's just assume that we've got some kind of content, whether it's, for example, this conversation, right? If we have some small videos or an article that's written based on this conversation that you and I are having. So the next step to get that message out is to think about social media to start with, right? Basically. Yeah. Whatever those platforms might be, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, whatever the channels are. And most people imagine that, it's a bit of a leap, Gavin, candidly. All right. How do you even get an article onto one of these platforms, right? Typically, you would open it up on your desktop or maybe on your phone and drag and drop it and then have to type something in or punch it in with your thumbs. So what does Sendible do that facilitates that process? Or how does it make that entire process easier?
Okay, so I think let's start by looking at what you would have to do if you didn't have a tool like Sendible. So if you didn't have a product like Sendible and you wanted to get your message out, you would have to open up Twitter. You'd have to copy and paste the content into Twitter and send it. You'd then have to go to Instagram, copy and paste, attach an image, send it out. LinkedIn, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, the same thing. So the amount of time to do that, if you think of every single platform that's out there to get your message out, and say it takes you 5 minutes per platform, you're talking about half an hour just to get one message out. Sendible gives you a single compose box. So think of a place where you can write one message, you choose where you want it to go. So in one step, you choose Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you can attach an image once, and Sendible will publish that content at the time you choose across the various platforms. And you can plan a whole month's content in an hour. So you can sit there, you can either import it from an Excel file or use our bulk import grid. But you can essentially spend an hour and get your month's worth of content published for you or scheduled in advance, so that you aren't having to go every day and manually post that content out. If you guys are running businesses, you just can't be doing that. So we facilitate the ability to kind of create the content once, hit a button, and decide when it goes out, at what time, and across the various platforms. Now, recently, if you are familiar with social media, you would know that every platform has different needs in terms of the content you post. So, for example, Instagram will not allow you to post links. Necessarily, links aren't clickable, but they promote posting of imagery and videos and kind of content that really engages an audience. Whereas LinkedIn, you might have a long form post that tells more of a story, and that would require a different piece of content. And we allow you to craft one piece of content, but customize it per platform in one flow sort of thing. So you would kind of create the content, choose your platforms, customize it for each platform, and then schedule it or publish it as you wish. So it's a way to save time, create the content once, and repurpose it across various platforms.
Right. It's really incredible, isn't it? So, for example, you might, let's say, go to a construction site, right? Picking my audience's favorite daytime pastime. So go to a construction site and take a bunch of photographs and have photographs taken of you. And then that entire portfolio, if you like, just from an hour on site, could be tabled to roll out on all channels with messaging, say over the course of one every day for a month, and it would take an hour maybe to schedule that whole content flow. Now it's really incredible actually to be able to do that. So there are a few functions, and I've tapped out a few questions actually while we've been talking. So these are a little bit out of sequence, Gavin. But let me ask you this, because there's one feature that's really fascinating, and it's really a deep dive feature, and that is this concept of optimal time for getting a message out. So I know that on the platform, because I love using it, there's a button there that I can send it now. I can schedule it to go out at a particular time on any day that I choose it to go out. But then there's also an option to select an optimal time. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so obviously because once you connect your social profile, we're able to collect all the data on that profile. So we can determine using that data when the best time is for you to post, when you're likely to get the most engagement. So what we do is we look at all your previously posted posts, so whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and we can determine the probability of when you're going to get the most engagement based on the hour in the day. So we'll look at your various posting activities and see when you get the most likes, comments, shares. And when you click the button to optimize your times, we'll then suggest the best time based on that posting behavior, or that posting behavior in the past that's led to the most engagement.
And is that platform specific, or is that overall? It kind of aggregates all platforms, does it?
So at the moment, when you're publishing, it'll look across all platforms. If you look at the measuring section where you can track your analytics, you can go deep into each platform and see which profile, or you can see per profile what time of the day is the best time to post.
Per profile, meaning per client, or per platform? Per
platform. Per platform. So if you're generating reports within Sendible, let's say for Instagram, you would select your Instagram profile, you would get a report, and in that report you would see what time and what day of the week gets you the most engagement. For each day of the week, what time on that day is the best time to post.
All right, so let me now kind of move to a broader subject, if you don't mind, and that is for somebody who is very unfamiliar, aware of social media, right, but unfamiliar with actually using it. Maybe they've used LinkedIn, possibly Twitter, but think of it more as, social, for something social, right, to communicating with friends, that it's not really necessarily for business, or they've not had any reason to use it for business, to raise money specifically for real estate. Talk about the power of social media in your view, and why it's so impactful today.
From the human side, you mean, like the you mean as a consumer, as a user of social media?
Well, I think I tell you what.
Yeah.
This is the context that I think most people think of it. I think of it like the old school way would be direct mail, or to advertise in a newspaper, or radio or television advertising, right? This kind of scattergun approach to getting your message out. Remember that the audience that's listening is an audience that has not been allowed to do any kind of advertising. So why would you even think about social media to raise capital, for example, online? What are the key benefits of adopting that kind of strategy?
So I believe that social media is a way to build trust. So what I guess what's happened over the years with marketing and how businesses have communicated, people haven't had access to information. You've been told what to believe, so you've been advertised to, and all you've had in the past is that messaging that comes from those big companies. Social media has broken down all of that. You now have access to the truth, to what's really going on, to all the facts. You have access to reviews. You're hearing from people, people who are talking about other brands. So it's a way to build trust. It's a way to connect with your customers, your audience, in a more human way. And it allows people to connect with each other. It allows businesses to connect with their customers, with their potential customers, with whoever they're trying to target. And I guess what's happening is because there's so much competition, there's a lot of competition. I mean, everyone can do, you can start a company in a heartbeat these days. It's really easy. But what people aren't focusing on is the brand. And social media is all about brand and like what you stand for. So it's less about your product, what you sell. It's more about why you do it behind the scenes, like how you go about building your product, the stories behind that is what people want to hear. They're sick of being sold to. They really want to hear the human side of a business and of a brand. And that breaks down barriers, that builds trust, that builds loyalty, customer loyalty. So I think what social media does is it allows people to connect with people, which is kind of what it was designed to be and become. So whether you B2C, B2B, whatever it is, ultimately you're able to connect with the people behind those businesses. And social media allows you to be human and tell the stories behind the scenes to build a following based on what you believe and kind of what you stand for.
That's really interesting. So let me ask you this then. So of the kinds of companies that you've seen, you say 20,000 users currently, of those that are in similar kinds of industries as real estate developers trying to raise capital from high net worth individuals, if you can think of any kind of analogous industries or users, what are the best practices that you've seen for engaging in that way with online community?
You mean to drive engagement or to attract their attention?
Yeah, both. I think. I mean, to start and develop the relationship with people that you don't know, in order to get to that point where you say, buy now or invest now.
Okay. I think it's about, again, as I said, it's about being human, right? So I think what people think is that social media is lower down the funnel than it actually is. They think you can send a link out, drive traffic to your site, and someone will engage or buy or email you. But it's more effective higher up the funnel, as I said, with brand awareness, building the brand. So I don't believe you'll get any engagement or any results until you have an audience that trusts you. You have to build an audience that trusts you. And people think that you have to kind of use overly produced, sort of polished content, but it's not even that. It's about just being human. So the way we are kind of trying to educate our users is just about telling everyday stories. Just explain your day to day. Like if there's some challenge you had in the day, how you overcame it, what you learned from it, and then have a call to action. But stop trying to send links to people just to click and drive them back to your website to get a sale or an opportunity. So the key here is to just focus on less on quality and more about just being human and building a habit of telling stories. So I think that the issue we have is that people's attention spans are shorter. Anyone on social media, they're consuming social media on mobile. They want push notification away from an interruption. You need to be able to craft a post that drives some sort of emotional reaction. And the best way to do that is through storytelling. So that's what we believe. That's what we're trying to educate our users to do. It can be across any industry. The easiest thing is just to get into a habit of jotting down something that happened in the day. Anything. It can be anything that's happened behind the scenes in the day that relates to what you're about, what you stand for, what you believe in, what your values are, and use that to tell stories. I can go deeper into the storytelling side, but the key trend is to stop interrupting what people are interested in and be what they're interested in. Just stop interrupting them, and that's why advertising is becoming less useful for brands. It's more about just being human. Just be what people care about, what they're interested in, is key.
Gosh, that's really insightful, Gavin. So let's just think about that for a second. I would like to dive into that a little bit more, if you don't mind, because it's at a high level, it makes sense. But on a practical level, how do you actually do that? So when you say jot it down, all right, so I jot something down or keep, how do I move that experience during the day, something that happened to me during the day, and get it out there? Am I going to type something, or am I going to record something on my iPhone, or like what are best practices and what have you seen works well?
Okay, so the way I do it, I've started to embrace this. And this has driven like so much engagement since I've changed the way I approach social media. And I've been teaching the team at Sendible the same sort of tactics. So
Okay.
we had someone who did use the same storytelling techniques. She drove 1,000. This is what's and she's a single. She's an employee at Sendible. She drove 1,000 interactions on a LinkedIn post. 1,000, which is massive. That's
It is
likes,
massive.
shares. Anyway, so it's a technique that I'll tell you. So often you'll see people walking with a camera, talking into the camera. Everyone's doing it on LinkedIn, saying something of value into a camera. But the key to success is using storytelling techniques, not just talking into the camera and hoping for the best. People will just drop off and lose interest. And the technique that I use is called PAS, or basically you take a problem, any problem that's happened in the day or in the week, some challenge you've had in running your company or whatever it is, any weakness or challenge you've had, you explain why that problem is important. Like, why is it that that problem is important to you? And then you explain how you went about solving it and what the lesson was when you solved it. And that's kind of just a basic structure of a story. So for example, at Sendible, we had a webinar a couple of weeks ago. Now, the webinar, we had some technical difficulties. The presenter kind of got disconnected during the webinar. And we had our marketing person having to call them on their mobile phone and interrupt them in the webinar. And you had footage of the presenter actually on the phone in the webinar speaking to our marketing person. So rather than taking it as an epic fail, it's a lesson, right? So what happened was we had the webinar, we had these outages and issues, and everyone saw what happening. But there was a story behind this because people loved that we were human, and there was actually this all behind the scenes that someone was trying to present this webinar. They had difficulty. At the end, they overcame that challenge, and people loved the webinar, and they got really good value out of the content. So it's anything. It's kind of, if you have an issue with an employee and you learn a lesson from that challenge that you've had and how you overcame it. If you're trying to raise capital, for a property or a project, you can tell the story of all the no's and how you eventually got to the yes and why that yes.
Well, now there we go. Right in the middle of that story, Gavin, you've frozen, and I've lost you. Well, that was poetic.
Sorry, poetic. I know. Damn it.
Like,
are you able to edit this, or how does it work?
Yeah. Sure, I'll edit. Don't worry. Yeah.
Sorry.
In fact, all I'm going to do is keep that bit in and nothing else.
Oh, no. Yeah, fine.
Oh, Gavin, you're
fine. I was waffling anyway.
No, you weren't waffling away. It's like what the internet decided it had enough and so disconnected it. No. It's. I mean, it's really. I think really. It's funny because actually, I've been trying to persuade my clients to do exactly this, and I have to tell you, it's really difficult. You make it sound easy and natural, but it's difficult to be so forthright, actually, and to expose oneself in that, kind of very informal way, to expose one's, failings and misses, and to talk about lessons learned. And yet it is really powerful, isn't it?
I think it's obviously everyone has a unique experience, and the value comes in sharing those unique experiences in a way that others can learn from it. So I think that's the easiest way to create engagement from your unique personal experience, your learnings.
Yeah, and then also that it builds the relationship. That's the point, isn't it? It's more than just here, buy this good stuff.
Exactly.
And
I guess by being authentic, you're building trust. So you're building a following. So you're becoming this hero. People are rooting for the hero, and they want to hear your journey, hear about your journey. So if you're trying to raise capital, tell a story about how you're trying to raise this capital, why it's important to you to raise that capital. And that's how you build a following, and they want to kind of come along for the ride and see you succeed. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, and it's actually, this is the point that I try to make as well. It's actually no different from the way that real estate developers have raised money forever. In that, now what we're talking about now, you and I, is doing it online, right? Using social media. but traditionally it's been done in person. And in person, we don't go into meetings and say, here's the deal, invest, right?
Yeah.
We'll sit down and have lunch. And like you and I did before we started, we chatted a little just to get to know each other, understand our mutual backgrounds a little bit. You know, just I'm obviously in the context of a podcast, it's less. But if I was asking you for $50,000, right, for a deal, you're going to want to know a lot more about me and my background and my experiences. And you're going to want to get to know me over time. And that's really what you're describing. And when you talk about, just describe for the uninitiated, really, what you mean about top of funnel or higher up in the funnel versus lower down. These are terms that, to somebody that doesn't know what a funnel is, can you explain that concept a little?
Yeah, so higher up the funnel would be people who have just been made aware of you, or maybe not even aware of what you do, but aware of your content, aware of your messaging, aware of what you stand for, why you do what you do. Not your product, not what you're trying to, kind of do as in business. So essentially, top of the funnel is, if you think of a website, they've read some of your content, they've seen a blog post. They don't know what you sell, which product you offer, but they're interested in the content that you're providing. So the way to attract their attention on social media is to engage, kind of tell a story that drives engagement, get people to share or like the story. And obviously, the more likes and shares you get, the more you reach a larger audience, because the people who've shared it, their connections see that they've shared it, and that's how you drive this virality. Similarly, you can use Facebook ads very cheaply at the awareness stage to drive awareness for what you do, why you do it, that kind of thing. And then as they progress through the funnel, so if you think of a website, they read a blog post, that's top of the funnel. They then fill in a form to download something. So you might have a white paper, an ebook, you might have a webinar, a podcast they subscribe to. Then later on, once you've nurtured them lower down, they're eventually ready to buy from you. So you've kind of built the trust. They value what you're providing. They've seen some value. They realize that you know what you're talking about, and they're then ready to buy from you. It's the same as, I guess, if you're trying to raise capital, trying to raise funds. Same thing, you kind of get them at the top of the funnel. They hear about you. They understand, that they can maybe trust you because of the value you bring. And then gradually over time, they get to know you with more content, more nurturing, more social media posts. And then when you go to them to kind of raise the money, they kind of understand what you're about, and they can then trust you more.
So social media is kind of that first contact point, is it? That point of initial discovery, you think?
That's what social media is becoming, because if you look at the trend, right? So if you take something like Instagram, as I said, there's no way for you to leave the platform, really. It's very difficult. You have to click the link in the bio. Facebook's algorithms are designed to keep you in the social media platform. They want to keep you on the app for as long as possible. So the key here is just to create the awareness on social media, because the algorithms aren't trying to push people away from the social media platforms. And that's why, similar to PR, right? You aren't really driving anyone anywhere. You're just there to tell the story and kind of build a following because of the interesting situations that have occurred for that person or that business. And I think social media is going to replace PR. And that's where I think things are going.
That's interesting. PR being traditional media, like the press, you mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, so at Sendible, we had a PR company that we used. And he would come to me, the PR guy we used would come once a month and say, right, Gavin, what stories can you tell? What's happened at Sendible in the last month? I'd have to rack my brains to think what occurred in the last month that's kind of worthy of him going to the press to tell the story to. But now that again loses trust, right? Because you got someone who's kind of crafting a story. It's a third party crafting a story for a journalist to write about. The real trust and being authentic, it comes from the company itself or the person themselves. And social media gives you that channel to get your story out firsthand and reach a larger audience and even target the audience if you want to. So I think the days of having a PR agent or a PR company coming to you to ask for a story that they can then go pitch, I think those days are numbered. I think it's moving towards, the people have all the power now. And people can read about you firsthand from what your customers are saying. There's already a trust element. They can see behind the scenes. And I just think PR is going to be obsolete soon.
That's really interesting. So you mentioned that you have co-opted your staff as well to produce content. Tell me about that, because I do think that's in fact, I've been having conversations with clients, staffs about that, trying to encourage them to take photographs and record stuff and just email me stuff that's going on birthdays or, whatever it is on site or whatever. But it's a bit, candidly, it's a bit difficult to get people to actually do it. So how have you done that? And what have you found successful in encouraging staff to participate in this?
I'm still working on it. It's not natural to most people, unfortunately. It's just not natural. So what I did was just to drive this whole vision for the company. So we believe in storytelling. That's where things are going. We want to help our users become better storytellers. Because what won't change is storytelling. It's in movies, it's in books, it's everything. And social media is becoming about high quality content and stories. So what I did was I said, right, we're gonna have a contest.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to say that. That's exactly what we just suggested. $100 a week to whoever gets the most likes and comments, basically.
So we had a webinar with a screenwriter. She's like a Hollywood screenwriter. He's also a content producer, and social media marketer. So she did a webinar for our customers and explained various techniques about storytelling, tactics you can use. Like I showed you one, but you can use many others. So I said to the team at Sendible, I said, right, can you guys watch the webinar? And you take one of those tactics and you create a post on Friday morning at 10 a.m., schedule it through Sendible, using one of these techniques to tell a story, any story you've experienced while working at Sendible. And whoever has the most engagement will give you AirPods, Apple AirPods. So they all were very pumped to kind of win this competition. And they all thought of their stories, and they put a photo and everything, and kind of the values behind the company came through. They had to tag Sendible in the post. And from that, we got just tons of customers just leaving comments on employees' posts, saying how much they value what they do, how much they love Sendible. So we got so many testimonials out of it. We didn't expect this. Just by every staff member telling a story about their experience at Sendible, about what they do day to day, and the challenges they've had, how they've overcome the challenges. We suddenly had these customers just loving us and loving what we stand for, loving our message, because they saw behind the scenes, and they believed they could follow a company that is more human, and more trustworthy and real and authentic. And that's what's come from that. So I think having a contest, showing them how storytelling can really drive engagement, which it definitely can. I can show you some stats that prove it from that contest. And since then, we've had staff who are now trying the same techniques on Facebook, on Instagram, and they've come to me saying, well, Gavin, the storytelling stuff really works. And it was one little tip, one little trick that they now believe in where social media is going, and they can see it firsthand. So I would say if you get your staff to hold a contest, tell a story about their experience while working for your company, and whoever gets the most engagement wins a set of AirPods or something else, maybe a day off.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea too.
Yeah.
And so what about the concern that you might have that somebody puts something out that could actually be a liability for the company if it's not curated? I mean, you allowed your staff to pump it out kind of, right? Just go for it. So what about that aspect?
Yeah, so one of our values is to be real, be human, authentic. So we never really entered my head. I think just the fact that they felt like they could be trusted to do this, I think was enough. I guess we have had people post negative things in the past, but normally after they've left the company. Like they wouldn't do that while in employment.
Yes, I see.
So when they've left the company, we would reach out to them, and so if we had something negative, what I've done in the past is I would kind of tell a story that articulates a value that they maybe say isn't there when it really is. So so I guess if someone is dismissed from the company and they're disgruntled,
okay,
you might in a subtle way explain a value of the company, and maybe in a way as to why you have to make tough decisions in some cases, and why it was a challenge for you and how you overcame it. and what lesson there is for for the future. But I guess it's just tackling it. It's normally after they leave the company and they're annoyed that you would get that kind of thing. Yeah.
So how do you see, you've talked about PR being superseded, you think, by social media. What other changes do you think are coming along that will fundamentally affect the way that we communicate with our audiences? I mean, in my industry, just the very fact of being allowed to communicate in this way with people that we don't already know is novel. But for somebody who is at the very heart of this kind of communication, where do you think, say, the next 12, 24 months where do you think changes are going to come?
In terms of communication, I think apps like WhatsApp messaging, direct messaging, people want that one-on-one connection. We've seen obviously with bots, like chat bots, people want to have conversations. But I don't wholeheartedly believe that chatbots are the future. I think it's, again, we believe firmly in human interaction. With everything going to be automated, I think it's an opportunity for people that are more human, or businesses that are more human in the space. So I think what they're looking for is one-on-one, real-time conversations. So for example, so we see more conversations coming through Facebook Messenger now, straight out our Facebook business page. They're expecting a real-time response.
Really?
And bots are there to kind of solve that issue, even though it's not authentic. It's there to help provide the illusion that it's real time. But I think where we need to get to is being able to deliver a human personalized experience that's tailored for that particular person. Because people are sick of all the fake content, fake news, and obviously Facebook's clamped down on fake news. The over-polished images on Instagram, the stock imagery, all the stock images. People are just really, they want human interaction. They want to get back to the human side of social media. So I think it's the businesses that are most human, that are delivering human interactions, human experiences, are going to win. That's where marketing is going. So I think that's where messaging is going to. It's kind of about delivering a one-on-one experience that's tailored for a person, giving them their time, of a real person behind a company, giving people their time.
So are there any industries that you've seen, and we talked briefly about what my audience focus is, right? Real estate sponsors trying to raise money. But in your experience with all your clients, I suppose, or users, are there any industries that come to mind that approximate to real estate development trying to raise large amounts of money from high net worth individuals? Seriously, because if there are, then maybe their practices can be adopted, right? Or learned from. Are there any that you can think of?
I wouldn't know offhand. Like, obviously we have a lot of customers, so I wouldn't always see what they're doing day to day.
Does anyone raise money for or sell stocks or anything, stocks and bonds, or investment products of any sort? I mean, the closest I can think of is maybe luxury cars, or but that's just approaching the same audience. It's not quite the same.
I guess maybe from first-hand experience. Obviously, we haven't raised any capital at Sendible, but we get investors kind of reaching out to me all the time. I get investors coming all the time, wanting to invest in the company. And I've noticed that as I'm more more visible on social media, I do get more investors reaching out to me, saying, "Oh, I saw you this and this. Would you like to have I'd love to have a chat with you about X, Y, or Z." Because they've seen us being more visible on social media. And I guess maybe one idea actually, which might be useful, is we often get these big companies, I won't name names, who reach out for big partnerships, like big software tech companies who want to partner with us. And most times they'll say they've read reviews online, and because we rated so highly in our space, they've chosen to partner with us, so that they kind of come to us because of our reputation. So I would say, I don't know if this exists in your industry, but if there's a place where there can be reviews written about you, you should drive your happiest investors or whatever it is to leave reviews about how it went working with you. And I don't know if this exists in your industry, but the way we do it is we survey our users. So I think every 30 days they get a survey.
Really?
How likely are you to recommend Sendible? An NPS survey. And those that give us 8, 9, and 10, we'll then reach out to them to leave us a review, so a testimonial or review. And so even though it's a review on a social media site or whatever it is, but that's a way to take your happiest customers or your happiest investors, whatever it is, and get them to review your offering, essentially. And that'll drive future investment because of your reputation, what you've delivered. Does that kind of align with what you guys do?
You know what? That's incredibly insightful, because actually what you just said was that without trying, you're attracting investors, right? Just doing what you do and the way you do it, through the way you communicate, and the things you've described, attracts investors. So maybe just don't try too hard, right? It's going to be a good lesson as well.
Yeah, I guess one lesson is that people aren't sold to, people buy, right? These days, people aren't sold to, people buy, right? So if you think about buying a car, right? If you're going to buy a car, you won't go to a dealership and kind of be sold to. You'll have done the research before. You will have read the reviews. You would go to the dealership that you want to buy the car from. It's the same with business that we're seeing, right? They've already come to us having done the research. And that's what we're seeing. They've done the research. They've kind of read the reviews, spoken to our customers, and they come in wanting our product because they've seen firsthand what it can do for other people. So I would say you have to leverage people you've worked with in the past. Find your happiest sort of partners and use them to at least leave you testimonials. Even on LinkedIn, they can leave you LinkedIn testimonials, and use that as much as you can to attract future investment.
Fascinating. Thanks so much, Gavin. Let me ask you, if I may, 3 quick sign-off questions that I ask all of my guests. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So what's the most important thing someone just starting out raising money online, right? A real estate developer raising money online, just starting out, what's the most important thing they should keep in mind?
Just starting out is a tough one.
Right?
That's really tough. I would, so starting out, so you've never done
Yeah, nothing. You might have a website that was, built 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you got a cell phone.
I'll tell you what I would do. I would document that journey. I think that, as I said before, tell the story of how you're trying to raise money online. Kind of film yourself, use video, use content, whatever it is, and kind of tell the story of how you're trying to raise money, and kind of build a following because they want to see the hero succeed, really. And again, as I said, all the tactics I mentioned before, using social media, using YouTube, using Instagram video, whatever it is, but keep telling the story of challenges. And I think that's the best way to start.
Okay. Second question. For you personally in your social media activities, what's been the hardest lesson you've learned online?
So originally when I started out, I thought that, you could just automate everything, kind of just have an RSS feed, have a feed of your blog posts and just distribute it across multiple channels. But over time, what's happening is that people are having to spend more time crafting content that actually drives engagement. So for a long time, I was just posting out content, just links to blog posts, getting 1 or 2 clicks, and that was it. And I guess you have to realize, as I said before, that social media is becoming more about brand awareness. It's hard to measure success on social media, but you have to keep plugging away. It takes time. But once you have a following, once you have an audience, it's amazing. So I would say the key is to not give up. Keep publishing content and just build a habit of getting content out there. Because at times you'll feel like it's not working. But the more you keep at it, the more you'll succeed over time.
And that leads into the last question, which is, what actually are your key daily habits that make you successful online? Daily habits.
So I measure everything. So obviously there's key metrics in a software company that you have to look at every day. So personally, I would look at number of trialists, number of visitors to the website, how many are converting, how many have cancelled. But that's more unique to my industry. I guess the second most important thing is to speak to your customers. So if you have existing investors, I don't know if this is if it relates to your industry, but you need to understand what makes them tick. So what I do is I open up my calendar 3 times a week. I let customers book in office hours with me, and I get to speak to them, ask them questions, ask about their challenges, what keeps them up at night. I get to know them really well, and that allows me to build a better product, but also to create the content that will attract them or attract people like them to our business. So I would say if you can, speak to your customers, speak to your previous investors, find out what it is that makes them tick, and figure out what it is that you can use to kind of attract more customers like them. Yeah, and as I said before, tracking NPS, which is how likely they are to recommend you to other people.
NPS, what does that stand for?
Net Promoter Score.
Net Promoter Score.
So it's a question. It's just a simple survey. How likely are you to recommend us to other people? And you use that, and everyone who gives you an 8, 9, or 10, as I said, you turn them into advocates, and you use them to attract more investors or customers.
Gavin, thanks so much for taking your time out. I know it's late in the day for you. Really appreciate it. It's a real pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that was Gavin Hammar, founder and CEO at Sendible.com. Sendible is one of my secret weapons, actually, for content distribution. They even have a Chrome extension that you can use that allows you to send web pages out over social also. It's a great way to keep your drumbeat of visibility alive across all channels all the time. Right? So, look, if you want to raise more money for your existing network and expand your database to a new generation of high net worth investors, I've put together an advanced training for you where you can learn best practices in the industry. And you can find that at the show notes page to today's episode at GowerCrowd.com on the podcast page. Hey, thanks for listening. And thank you, Gavin, founder and CEO at Sendible.com, for spending your time with me today. That's it. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, this is Dr. Adam Gower signing off.